Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? Just realized the black shirt is never a good decision for these because it always confuses the little background remover, but who really cares? Episode 30. How crazy is that? I was sitting there thinking about it and reflecting on what analyzing GameStop has done so far for me and my understanding of markets, which is unbelievably cool, I think. And GameStop is one of those stocks so far that I can clearly identify. It's taught me a ton about how markets behave, the way things seem to be versus the way that they are. And yeah, super, super interesting to me. So the game plan for this session today is pretty standard fare. We'll start with a quick overview, just analyze where GameStop is today, any new news that's coming out, those kinds of things. And then we'll dive into the next iteration of the top theory analysis where we're going through the DD library. I think we're almost through the second half of the Diamond Handbook, I believe it's called. Yeah, the Diamond Handbook, which is over 400 pages. So we've consumed an incredible amount of information, different theories and stuff, which is super fun for me. It's interesting to see the way that people think. And again, for those that don't understand my interest and application for this, I imagine most of you are, but for anybody that's tuning in for the first time, like I'm still primarily a trader. It's how I make my money. It's what I do. So GameStop is interesting from a lot of like general market function perspectives for me, and understanding the way that people think about it, the way that people use it, the way that people treat it is very interesting to me. And it's just a lot of it is so different than what I do. So I really enjoy that perspective. And then also there's the reality that I trade GameStop, and I trade GameStop for a reason. And it's because there's a lot of volatility. Now, I still fully consider myself a guest in the GameStop house because I was not there the entire duration. Like I know some people have been in the stock for 4 years now, 5 years now. And I just kind of come in, trade, leave when it's time to move on to something else. So taking time to get into detail on it has been super fun. Now, one quick admin note is you'll notice that on Tuesdays, I'm starting to get into a regular cadence of a GameStop specific video coming out on Tuesdays. And the reason why I'm hammering that in is because while there's not always a lot going on with GameStop, meaning the cat doesn't always post or the stock isn't always flying all over the place. So that means that it kind of has slowed down the number of GameStop videos that I've been doing as standalone videos because it's been a little more quiet. But I realize even though I am still looking at it every day, I'm not sure that people are able to like track what I'm tracking specifically from an options and derivatives perspective. So that's the goal of that Tuesday video. And the other thing that you'll note is on that video, I'll walk through the position that I've been sharing with you all. I'm using a model position, really breaking out part of my broader position and then showing everybody how we can trade GameStop specifically using options. And it's just the way that I'm doing it in what I consider to be probably one of the more applicable ways for most people that trade GameStop, from the perspective of most that I know really want to buy it, want to hold it. So we want to base the options trading around the equity position, which we can absolutely do. That's the cool part about options. So who do we got in the chat? We got Lucas, Lauren, Reese. We have our blue box friend, EK. What does a metallurgist say during a heat wave? You have to tell me. It looks like tingling. Oh, you already answered it. I realize it's another person. I'm smelting. I'm smelting. Good. I like that one. Thank you for the joke. We'll make sure that, oh, damn it. We have to like put it together so that I can pin it. Oh, fuck. I fucked that up too. Damn. One sec. I want to make sure that your joke is able to be pinned so everybody can enjoy it. There you go. There you go. All right. First things first. Let's get into a quick analysis of the stock. I'm going to continue managing this timestamp, so I'll take a pause as we're like changing key topics just so that it's easy to navigate going back in time for everybody. So 8:20 into the stream, and we were doing GME stock analysis. Okay, let's see what the dealio is. First thing, grab it up on the platform, move you guys over to the main screen, and let's talk about it. So we know that GameStop had a pretty significant sell-off this day. We looked at this day specifically because it was essentially 10% down move on a day with no news. Like still essentially no news, which is kind of nuts. Sometimes when companies are making moves like this, I'm speaking in generalities. Sometimes when companies make moves like this, we might not see it the day of, although almost always you do. It's really rare that you'll see a company move 10% plus in a day on no information whatsoever. But on smaller companies, sometimes that can happen, and the information will come out maybe a couple days later, and you could just essentially tell that somebody knew what the hell was going on and they were playing the move. But that's not even happened here. So bizarre. Now, I drew this channel. When did I draw the channel? Definitely before all this. I drew this channel off of these lines here. I don't think there was any of this in this yet. And it's still running within this really, really steep declining channel. So there's a couple things that stick out to me from this. We've definitely given up this 30 handle. And the reason why that's important is from the way that I'm actually trading it, I took some of the shares down, some of the actual shares that I'm holding, and I'm setting alerts that as it starts moving its way back up, so I can get back into it as the rebound eventually occurs. These two lines have been drawn forever now. I wonder if it tells me like when I actually drew it. Does it tell us? I don't think so. Unless it's from here. Anyways, I don't remember when I drew these, but this definitely would have been over a week ago at least. And the reason why I'm curious about when I drew them is because the price behavior that you see is helping us identify where we expect the floor to be in GameStop, which is big question right now. Still hasn't had that significant of a fall, all things considered, going from 33 to 27. Now, it's a decline, right? That's literally an individual bear market for the stock, essentially. However, that being said, it's also a really volatile stock. So really volatile stocks like this will ebb and flow into these kind of moves all the time. So it's not like the same thing as calling it like a bear market in an index ETF, just completely different. That context is only for your general consumption, because I know that there was some people that were talking about like, oh, maybe it's setting up like a cup with handle or something like that. And it just, this is too deep of a decline for that. Again, from a standard technical perspective, normally you're going to be sub 10, 15% decline, definitely not 20 plus. So from a general market perspective, we can see that volume really ramped up heavy on this down day, and then it's been on a slow decline. Now we've had some up days, some down days, but the main thing is if you take a look at the volume moving averages, both the 5 and the 20, they're both negative sloping. So volume is siphoning out ever so slowly, but volume still remains quite elevated compared to where we saw it pre-squeeze from May. So there's still definite interest in the stock. We'll take a look through, see what institutional ownership and stuff like that looks like, and then we'll start looking through if there's any specific news. But from a price action perspective, negative trend. Long-term uptrend still. So if we zoom this out even to a 1 year daily, you can see that there's still very clearly positive slope in the linear regression. Well, these are standard deviation channels. So that's a really important note. That tells us that this thing is still in an uptrend. Even when I zoom this into a 6-month time frame, still an uptrend. So even though on this short-term time frame, so if we get this tighten in enough, it will show a downtrend here. So if we come into a 1-month daily, you can see that it's clearly on a downtrend in the shorter term time frame. But anything from a 3-month time frame out, it's still positive sloping. So still very much in general accumulation. The way that we would describe this from a standard stage style technical analysis lens, right? Stage 1 through 4, this here would have been accumulation, pretty significant accumulation. This is now distribution. So distribution a lot of times will happen when there's steeper consolidations, but this here now is the zone to watch where I have these two alerts, the 29 down to the 27, essentially. Now, as I mentioned before, if we start seeing price falling heavy below the 26.5, to me, that's short-term bearish, because this has clearly been defined as a new volume node where lots of people are transacting here. So if it starts getting to the point where it's plummeting below that, well, then that means, at least for me, I'm not going to unwind more of my shares from the covered strangle that I have on in there at this point. But that's when I'm just going to start setting a bunch of alerts for when it does start to base up and out. And then I also will sell more cash secured puts into that because the volatility will be elevated. Volatility right now is at 78.5%, which is a high gross number, but as a relative basis, implied volatility percentile is literally 8%. Super, super light. And that's, again, just pointing out how volatile of stock GameStop is, which I think everybody knows. That's why we trade it. Now, another thing that we see here is from a oscillator lens, RSI down here. I use a 2-line RSI. I use a moving average, and then I use the RSI line itself. And it uses a 7-day VWAP for the moving average. And you can see that that's negative sloping. And you can see that the RSI itself is also negative sloping below the moving average, both below 50. That's bearish. That is a complete bearish alignment of that indicator across the board. So all of this is to say, from a trading perspective, right now, for me, not adding longs. I don't add longs in periods like this until it starts to show sustained moves. And again, something I try to remind everybody of as much as I can is that when GameStop starts to have really big, massive moves, we tend to get a little bit of a heads up. It doesn't happen overnight. It's never next day. There's always a series of indications leading into the move that give you as much time as you possibly can need, again, from a trader perspective, to get back in if you're so inclined. So a lot of the move that we saw here absolutely came from the cat. So we know that he posted, let me grab X and let me find Roaring Kitty. So the cat posted here, and this was on the 22nd. So if we take a look at the stock movement, here's the 21st, bit of a down day, got caught, which is great. And then 22nd, pretty significant rally up and out, also into the 23rd. So this is just another reality. This is absolutely another undeniable reality about the way that Roaring Kitty can interact and move the stock. He moves the stock. That's all there is to it, especially in a near term. Has he always moved the stock? I don't think so. But we can run a pretty simple analysis of his last X number of posts and see what the average move in GameStop was. If you guys are interested in doing that, we literally can do it on the stream later. It's super easy to do. But there's a correlation there, which I know because I've already looked at it from a loose perspective. Now, the interesting part is the reversal component to that, which is also tradable, by the way. So one of the things I've noticed is analyzing the correlation between when the cap posts, what the stock does, how long the stock does it, and when does it start to reverse, because it almost always has a reversal several days after the post, within several days after the post, I should say. And just tradable. That's what I'm highlighting, is that understanding these kinds of details are really informative because they're tradable. So let's take a look at the options. It looks like we have a few people interested. Yeah, so we can run through the Diamond Handbook after we finish the analysis, see how much time that we have left. And if we do, I'm happy to do that with everybody. Richmondson, seems like when GME gets vol above average, it goes up. When lower volume goes down. When vol goes through the roof, it spikes huge in near term. I am unsure. Yeah, I'm unsure. The reason why I say I'm unsure is because I know that that's just an anecdote. I know that that's just what you've happened to have seen, which is okay. But before I like to say stuff like that, or before I would say stuff like that personally, I like to actually see it and run an actual analysis, because I can see why you might catch that trend. But my guess is there's probably a little bit more to it, but I'm unsure. So I think it's a fair starting point at least. So the options chain is actually pretty damn quiet. So the options chain is at 545,000 calls against 165,000 puts. And we're all over the place. We have expirations out. This looks like July. Let's see. 7 Feb, 17 April, 21 Feb. It's kind of all over the place. 21 Feb. So a lot of them are for the next primary expiration, this looks like. So of this 545K, 94 of it is in 21 Feb, 119 is in 31 Jan. So this is light. There's nothing in here that's really interesting me, that's standing out as like really impactful or anything like that. The only thing to highlight that is a slight departure from what we've seen the last couple cycles is that the bulk of the OI is, for the call side, is in the front expiration now, 31 Jan, but it's so light. 119,000, super light. So yeah, nothing really jumping out at me from this perspective. Volatility is low across the surface. We can see anything stick out to us here. These two stick out. 21 March, 17 April. I'm assuming earnings is somewhere in that time frame, just from the spike from 72 to 82, essentially to 89. My guess is these will ramp up. They typically do in GameStop. It'll go through periods where it's quieter like this, but it's normally not sustained for significant durations of time. So yeah, I mean, at a really high level, from an options lens, not a whole lot that I'm seeing that's leading me to think anything specific is going on. This is about status quo. The volatility contracting as much as it has, that is marginally interesting, just because volatility tends to carry a bit higher in GameStop. And from a technical perspective, long-term uptrend defined as 3-month time frame plus, but short-term downtrend as defined 1 month and within. So we're seeing a divergence short-term time frame compared to the long. That's normally when we look for capitulation, meaning we try to see where the new defined trend is going to lead. So for me, from a technical lens, all eyes are on the short-term side of the analysis window. And I want to see if either it's going to start rotating through and falling below some of those key levels, or if it's going to consolidate, base out. If it bases, that's one thing in and of itself, or if it bases and then starts to resume its appreciation. From a business perspective, from a fundamental perspective, GameStop is in a very weird spot, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So let's grab GameStop here. On bar chart, it's flagged as a buy. That's actually interesting. 64% buy with weakening short-term outlook. Yeah, that's fucking funny because we literally just essentially reiterated this exact thing. That's hilarious. And let's take a look at some of the fundamentals. I want to specifically look at it under the hood. I don't care so much. All right, nothing jumping out at me here like crazy. Let's take a look at how it's doing in the general landscape. So this is plotting it against other quote unquote gaming companies. It's a general competitor list. It's going to be a mix of things. It's not really a direct comparison, right? Because Penn is similar, but not the same. EA, but it gives us an idea of how the industry is doing. So if we take a look within the industry of gaming, we can see RSI, SGHC, and SNAL are the only ones that are above it on a 52-week time frame. That's really important because this means even though GameStop is having a near-term reversal, the fact that it's performing so well within the broader sector and the segment of gaming, that's actually exceedingly telling because it went through the squeeze, as we saw, but the really cool thing about this is that the squeeze abated, right? Like this isn't still pricing from the squeeze. What you see here is actual fundamental pricing happening in the stock as compared to what you see here, which is structural factors that are driving changes in the stock price that are generally unnatural. Unnatural meaning it's not reflective of the fundamental value of the company. It's reflective of, again, market factors, people being short and being caught on the wrong side of that, having to buy. It's probably a mix of institutions from a hedge fund lens and then also from market makers, which induces not just a short squeeze, but a bit of a gamma element to it. That's what you see here. This is different. This is actually a fundamental pricing of the company that's changing, which is good. So the fact that it's sustaining this move post squeeze and it's sustaining this placement post squeeze is actually really, really good. So all of those things lead me to believe that the company is still generally situated well. The problem it has is it needs to do something. Like that's just an objective reality. GameStop has to do something. And it's in the process of doing some things, right? We can see that it's closing its weaker performing stores. Really smart. And it essentially needs to continue down that path of doing something. The reason why the something is so important here is because just because GameStop has money, that's great. It needs to do something with the money to generate revenue. And I continue to reiterate that point because lots of people will continue to say like, oh man, look at all the interest that they can earn on that money. That interest doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because people don't buy GameStop because it's a bank that earns a yield. That's not the business model. The business model is mixed, and we're starting to see it branching out into the card grading services and things like that. But it needs to continue innovating there in order to sustain a fundamental valuation and a fundamental valuation change. That's what it needs. So we're seeing that happening, but it still has a ways to go. Now, it has lots of ammunition to use, but it needs to do something. So that is the Cliff Notes version of where GameStop looks like it is right now. And we will now pivot back into the top theories, which is analyzing right now the Diamond Handbook. Handbook. Let's grab that. I'm going to move this out of the way and then we'll grab this. So it looks like we're generally in kind of like a series of AMAs. And this one, let's grab where we left off. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. Where are we at? 364. So now we have Lucy Komisar. I am unfamiliar with Lucy, so I'm gonna look her up really fast just for my general understanding. Lucy Komisar, who looks like a journalist. Is that correct? Or is this... let me move the chat so I can keep an eyeball on you guys as I'm looking through stuff. Does that sound correct to you guys, though? Journalist? If not, that's okay. I just don't know if this person's like well known in the community. As you all know, I don't know. But when I look them up, what I see is journalist. So I guess we will figure out. Yeah, okay. So it looks like there's a thing called the Komisar Scoop, reports and analysis. Oh, whoa. So she has like her own thing, and it literally talks about it literally talks about a lot of capital based things. Secret underbelly of the global financial system, offshore bank and corporate secrecy. This is great. So the reason why I'm taking the time to do this is because I'm going to reach out to her and see if she wants to do a podcast at some point. I did the same thing before with Susan Trimbath, who actually responded to me, but I don't think that we connected fully on the original email because I think she just looked at like my overall brand as like options trading. And she was just like, I'm not an options trader. So I'm not sure like where my work would overlap. But then I followed up with another email explaining essentially this entire segment that we've been doing. So I'm still optimistic that I'll be able to line up with Susan at some point. But I'm going to grab an email literally right now and see if I can connect with Lucy once we go through her work. Because I just want to make sure that, you know, obviously the work is good. I'm sure it is, but I like to look at this stuff before. So, but it looks like she's been in the game for a while, man. This is insane. That's cool. So the other thing that looks to be very cool about her work is that it looks like, I mean, she's been doing this stuff for a hot minute. And she's in all sorts of stuff. Private equity abuses, tax evasion, Russia, money laundering. So very, very, very cool. All right. So I found her email, but we will keep that pulled up and then let's go through this AMA and see what we can learn. Okay. Out of the ordinary AMA question. Let me just skip through all this stuff. Okay. This is the first AMA with Lucy Komisar, but as many of you know, we are having her back in May 24. Okay. Ella, I don't care too much about all this stuff. I just want to get into Lucy's work. Okay. Got involved in journalism a long time ago. Civil rights movement. Okay, so this is definitely the person I'm looking at without a doubt. UPI, writing, Philippines. People said the dictator looted the country and money all in Swiss banks. I thought, what's that all about? So you could tell that she started. Man, she's been in all sorts of angles of this stuff. This is nuts. Okay, but what you're telling me, as I understand it, that offshore means a secrecy haven. So you still have an offshore account in the US. Yes, you can. Places like Delaware, Wyoming, they advertise, set up a company. You can't have a bank account that is secret, but you can have a company that is secret. Yep, that's correct. And for those that don't know, wealthy people do a lot of stuff with this stuff. And it's for a bunch of different reasons. Everybody immediately assumes, it's just to evade taxes and stuff. And there definitely are tax havens in structures like this. I've spent a while working with different kinds of attorneys to learn about all this stuff, because it's a world that I didn't understand. And I spent time learning all about this. And there's a lot of things you can do that are very crafty to help optimize both your actual financial picture from a tax optimization standpoint, but then also from a just overall robustness perspective, I guess I would say. So let's see what else we have here. All right, GameStop. Here it is. Well, because of writing offshore, I got invited to be in a film which would be called The Wall Street Conspiracy. Came out in 12. When the person called me and talked to the person who invited me, I said, I never heard of naked short selling. Here we go. Don't worry, we want to talk to you about offshore and how that's linked, and it certainly is linked. But when I went to the studio where people were being interviewed for the film, I met everybody who was involved in fighting naked short selling. What fucking sucks about this is that this film came out in 2012, and we're still talking about this shit. So that tells you something huge. That tells you that the people that really like it don't want it to fucking go away, which is why it's now 13 years later, a decade and a half, and we're having the same fucking conversation. That's disenfranchising. And this is also why I reiterate what somebody like Dave Lauer is doing. It's really important, because what Dave Lauer is doing is such a long, drawn out process that is difficult to run all the way to ground. And yeah, I don't know. It's a bummer to see that we're literally talking about the same ass basic shit right now as a decade and a half ago. But thus, here we are. So here we go. Met Wes Christian, Suzanne Trimbath, who we're literally talking about, Dr. T. There are 4 people in the film. Carl Hagberg. Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to look it up directly on YouTube. I'm going to add this to my... I don't think we can watch this together, unfortunately, because the stream will probably get taken down. But Wall Street Conspiracy. And here it is. Wait, there's 2 of them. Okay, there's a lot of them. There's one from Frontline, and then there's one... I'll drop both of them in here. I don't know either of these. I'm just grabbing what I'm seeing. So I can't speak to which one of these is the correct one, or if they're the same one. I'm not sure. The first one I dropped is from a YouTube channel called The Wall Street Conspiracy Movie. The second one is called Money, Power, and Wall Street Part 1 full documentary from Frontline PBS. But I will earmark the conspiracy movie, the Wall Street Conspiracy movie. I'm actually going to add it really quick to a watch list, and then I will work through this personally, and then so let's add this to watch later. Cool. And then hopefully I'll be able to share out what we can find. All right. I suggest everyone go watch it. Mind opening, absolutely phenomenal. I'm actually going to see if I can reach out to the people that run this channel. There's a website. Here, I'm going to go to the website. Okay, so the domain is gone. Well, damn. I want to go back. I imagine it would be terribly boring for you because, fuck it. We'll try to do it with audio and see if it works. Um, Damn, this is old, man. So you guys can see the closed captions. I'm just kind of flipping through it. Naked short selling. Look at this. Oh, it's so... I'm going to see if I can... Are you guys able to read that quick? If so, I'll probably speed it up a little bit. I'm going to see if I can try to play some of the audio for you guys. I just don't know if it's going to drop the stream. I'm unsure. But let's see if we can speed this up a little bit. So we're still just talking about naked shorting. Yeah. So this is all just talking about the financial crisis. I mostly want to see the stuff about naked shorting. So this is talking about internal users that were leaking information to try to manipulate the price. I think we know about this stuff for a stock called Eagle Tech. What the fuck? What kind of riddles is that guy talking in? Did you guys pick that up? That dude said whenever you have all the ingredients, you're going to bake the cake. And then if the duck quacks, you're going to feed the duck. And when you get the ducks to quack, you feed them. I honestly can't wait until I'm a fucking 85-year-old dude that doesn't have to say anything coherent anymore. And I can just say shit like that. That I can just be like, well, the fucking ducks are barking, so I'm going to, walk the dog. I have to figure out which ones I'm going to use. Fun fact, this is essentially how I watch movies too. I just fucking put it on fast speed and flip. There's so much shit in there that you don't need. Okay. Yep. So this is talking about the basics of short selling. I imagine most of us are familiar with this. Did not know that. That's brand new news to me. I had no idea that it had to do with the tulip market in Holland. But short selling does have a use, which I will continue to remind people just in terms of pricing. If it was actually done correctly, like not this bullshit naked short selling and whatnot, like that's nonsense. But short selling itself does have a use. Yeah. Which this reflects exactly what we were talking about last week during the last episode of this, where during the shareholder meetings, we were finding that there were so many extra voters, people thinking that they had a vote. And it's literally because of this. So it's all just connecting those dots. Fucking sound familiar? They're saying that when they looked at all the shares being sold, that there were too many shares being sold. Wouldn't it be weird? Wouldn't it be just absolutely bizarre if somehow there was a way for a company to have in excess of 100% short interest? Wouldn't that be absolutely insane if that could happen? Because you would think it's only possible to short what's there. So the idea that maybe there's too many shorts, I don't know, maybe I'm just going off the reservation here, but it almost seems as if it shouldn't be a thing for there to actually be excess shares being sold short. I don't know. Don't worry. What he's saying is people that are in Wall Street, institutions, brokers, market makers, they're all the fucking same humans you are. He's doing hold and pray, which is never a good vibe. So anytime you feel bad about yourself doing something on the stock market, don't worry. There's people with glasses that are brokers doing the same shit. Huh. That's kind of selfish. I hope on the way back, the plane doesn't make it. It just feels like that impacts other people, not just yourself. Yeah. We don't need all this. So it's talking about the DTCC and the function of the DTCC. I feel like all of you have gotten primed enough to the 1.5 times speed. I think we can bump it up, right? Normally I'm at like 2.25. So this is still like glacial. So let's see if we can do 1.75. Crazy. The thing that I want to make sure that you guys are connecting are the elements that we're tying from all these other pieces coalescing in multiple spots. When we're trying to piece together the truth, the reality, how things actually are, one of the elements that's really important is objective analysis. But part of that objective analysis is seeing how many things tend to line up. This is now the umpteenth version of this exact thing that we've heard from a bunch of different sources, from a bunch of different vectors. That tells me something important. That tells me that there's something behind what the fuck they're talking about. This is the phantom share issue. The funny thing about the phantom share issue, this is what I find so curious about it. If I were a stockholder, long-term stockholder, I own the stock, I might vote as a shareholder. What I find so interesting is that there are that many entities that are choosing to vote. So much so that you can clearly see that there's an excess over what should be being received in terms of votes. That's just curious to me. I don't fully understand the motivation behind the additional entities for the voting. The basic answer might be people thinking that it could be them trying to make bad decisions to vote it into the ground, but you're not really going to be able to accomplish that through a shareholder voting. That would have to be done through much more specific avenues. I got to pop the door for Thor because Mel just... He's pacing back and forth, whimpering. So, you know, we got to hook him up. And when I say whimpering, that's his war cry, by the way. There's no whimpering around here. Not in this household. All right, let's go. What? What a fucking response. I understand part of their point, right? When you're working with really massive systems, to have everything line up and zero out is very difficult. I do get that. But I feel like there at least has to be a reasonable level of tolerance. Like, at least. So, like, what a fucking response. Yeah. If I have a chance to talk with Susan, I want to show her this clip. Actually, I need to save this clip. The reason why I want to save this clip is because the fact this is shock inception. She was shocked in mid 2000s that 10 years ago this shit was coming up. Mid 2000s. What is the response going to look like when we have a chance to talk about it in motherfucking 2025? What's the response going to be? Oh, damn, this is nuts. Oh yeah, I forgot. I got to update our timestamps because we started watching our show. What time did we start this thing at? Like 53 minutes in. The Wall Street Conspiracy Movie Review. I'm going to have to start crowdsourcing people to help me keep up with these fucking timestamps. I keep forgetting. That's fucking crazy. That's kind of fun. I like this sign guy. Big fan of the sign guy. Oh, back to Eagle Tech. Whoa. So this is talking about seller boxing. So this is essentially just talking about seller boxing, and like a quick recap of the incentive behind that is that if you can get a company to go bankrupt, then you have a much better tax picture from the short side of that trade. So this is a way to make money from two different sides of the trade, like pretty seamlessly. So really, really interesting. I'm going to earmark where we're at in this so that we can come back to it. I don't want to spend the whole session on it. Let me grab a link to where we leave off right here at like 25 minutes. And then we'll come back to this, because I want to finish going through the AMA, at least for Lucy, before we wrap up. So let me move this out of the way, and then let's get back to the Diamond Handbook. So 58. All right. All right. Uh, okay. I'd like to show you how the offshore system really does connect with naked short selling. It's about the Sedona story. Started 20 years ago. Software company based in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. That's a confusing place. Just starting out, wanted to expand in IB. That dude was working with a company called That Company. Said he could help finance their growth. That company was owned by corporate raiders Carl Icahn and Bennett LeBeau. Interesting that she calls Icahn a corporate raider. Find that curious. The deal was that dude was going to get Sedona a $2.5 million deal, locate investors, sell shares to them. Lenders would be paid back with the loans come due, would be converted to shares. So you have a loan that would be promised to pay your shares. The amount of shares depend on the stock price at the time of conversion. This would become called death spiral financing. So, and then this is, I guess, where offshore and naked short selling enters the picture. These dudes had a company called Rhino Advisors. That's a sick ass name. They would be intermediaries working with Sedona and the man from Ballman. They were working with an offshore fund called Amro International, registered in Panama, based in Zurich, to offshore places. Ladenburg investors included the Batliner Group. Well, if anybody did some due diligence, they would find that Herbert Batliner, that's a fucking hell of a name too, or 99 German intelligence report, was in the business of laundering illicit funds. The U.S. prosecutors told a Colorado trial in federal court that Batliner had been handling money for a prominent Latin American drug dealer. So the contract with Amro said no shorting because shorting would push down the price of shares, and the less shares were worth when it came time to convert them, the more the stock Amro would get. But the Badians went to work. Fuck, this is convoluted. I need a diagram. When Sedona signed the deal with Thalman in 2000, shares were at 6. Every time the company made a good deal, good news, their shares went down and they couldn't figure out why. Turned out that the Badians were shorting the sale through an electronic communications network that allowed the seller to hide. And a month before the conversions, Badian told the brokers at the infamously corrupt, now defunct New York brokerage called Refco to start selling Sedona stock short from an account at an offshore Refco affiliate. Jesus. So Refco is not a fly-by-night, had 4 billion and 200,000 customer accounts, largest broker on the CME. In a month, they pushed the price of shares down from 6 to 1. Now, Badian told the brokers, keep selling, use unbridled levels of aggression. Now, the key thing that I'm keying into here is how this is a coordinated effort. The ability for one entity, even with 4 billion, to do something is limited. That's the beautiful part about segmented markets. The problem is that so many of them are in a similar position trying to do similar things that we run into this problem where these motherfuckers have a bunch of friends and they just call up their friends and be like, yo, bitch, do this, which is crazy. It's crazy that this is so colluded. And it raises an even more important point as far as I'm concerned, which is with the amount of collusion that we see, the fact that, and how pervasive it is, when things start to get that big, they become known, right? So think of when you consider like old school mob bosses. The entire neighborhood knows who the mob boss is. The cops know who the mob boss, like all these different entities know what's going on, who it is, and who's involved. But they don't do things about it for a litany of different reasons. The curious thing about this is with something this significant and coordinated, and to be clear, I'm not talking about just this one instance. I'm talking about this happening across different companies. It's really shocking that there hadn't been enough that would come out and start to challenge it. And I'm saying that partially tongue in cheek. The reality is most of that probably was coming out in different places, journalists reaching out, those kinds of things, but nothing was happening. The fact nothing was happening tells you, again, the alignment of the incentive structure. Weird. Because every dollar that you sell is a dollar in my pocket. Price fell 75 cents, then it fell to 10 cents. Lauren says, why people are so passionate about GameStop. I agree with you to a degree. The reason why I say that is because I think a lot of people in GameStop, and again, this is my just general observation, I think a lot of people in GameStop have a very casual relationship with it. And if we were to ask the majority of people that are involved in the stock, like if they could describe these elements, I'm dubious that they could. I think a lot of people would essentially be able to frame it as the stock should have gone up more and it didn't, so the game is rigged. And I do think that that happens to partially be the correct conclusion here, but I think it's missing a lot of details. And I think that the main reason why people are upset about that are not necessarily because they're so concerned about the efficiency and the fairness of the market as a whole, but I think a lot of people are just frustrated that they didn't get their money. Now, maybe that's too dystopian of me to think of it that way, but the reason why I say that is because with how long this thing has been going on for, a lot of things could have been done if people cared about it from the perspective of, I care about markets being fair. And I say that because what Dave Lauer is doing by filing that lawsuit, that's a lot of work, but that's also putting his money where his mouth is. That's not cheap to fund. So there could have been people, if we were really, really genuinely interested in fairness of markets, we would have banded together, crowdsource funding to hire a legal team to then try and start a lawsuit. But I think for the majority of people, it's way more casual than that. And I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying that I don't actually think the depth of people look at it from, oh, I want this to be fair. I think a lot of it is people didn't get the outcome that they wanted. They're upset about it. And I get that. But I just think it's a little deeper than that. Rob says, I put 30,000 in as a protest. They are shutting the truckers down and freezing bank accounts. Physical protests don't work. I mean, I guess that there's a lot to that, right? I think your ability to protest however you want, I think is fair, right? So you doing it that way, I think is okay. And I think to try to figure out what you want the impact of your action to be is also really, really important. But I think when we say like they're shutting the truckers down and freezing bank accounts, that part I'm not positive what that's in reference to more broadly. I'd need more details and like who they are. That's just another dangerous thing that we do. When we're upset about something, when we don't like something, we generalize it really, really broadly versus keeping it very specific to who the entities are. So yeah, just a couple thoughts on that. But let's see. The Badians, they've been doing it a month, represented 40% of all trades. Somebody should have been looking at the stock, trying to figure out what's going on. Conversion left Sedona still out of 2.5 million loans, owing 1.9. They would have to issue more shares because they would end up letting Badians control the company. Okay. So in the start of February, they had 77 employees, 65 clients that wanted the software, IBM contract, $7 million financing. When the stock tanked, they lost business, couldn't get other financing, and had to fire people. So Sedona finally went to the SEC Justice Department. They were looking at what's going on. They charged Andreas in a criminal case, but he jumped sail and went to Vienna. Austria doesn't have treaty with the US that where somebody is miscreant in a financial crime, you can't demand that person, so there's no extradition. Yeah. Okay. Smart move by them. So Thomas Badian and Rhino have settled with the SEC for $1 million without admitting guilt, but they did not sue any of them. In May of 2003, that's when Wes Christian got involved. He filed a civil suit against Ladenburg Thalmann and some others. Okay, so I'm taking a pause here because I need to email this lady. So now that I understand a little bit more of her work and more what she's talking about, I 100% want to see if I can try and get her on the podcast, because the thing I'm most curious about from her perspective is, based on what she was looking at this amount of time ago, what does she think about where we are today and where we are now? Genuinely interested in that. So let me email Lucy. I'm literally emailing her right now. So I'm saying, hey, Lucy and team, my name is Eric. I run a YouTube channel, trading, and have been diving into the GameStop story for about 6 months now. Came across your work in an AMA on Reddit regarding the offshore component and tie to naked shorting. I'd love to chat with you sometime if you'd be willing to hop on a podcast to understand your perspective of the evolution. This, thanks for you. Cool. Email sent. So we'll see. I would really like to be able to talk to her. Lauren says, you assume people know how to crowdsource and get an attorney. Not everyone understands that world, so they bought shares in help. Yeah, and I think that that's also huge, right? And I also think that the retail trader, in doing that, actually did find a way, to your broader point, to protest, and specifically regarding this individual ticker. My comment was more so that I think it's tied mostly to the individuals and their individual financial relationship with that ticker, and just less so from the perspective of, because of my interaction with this ticker, I now can clearly see that there are clear elements of manipulation in the broader market, and I want to do something about that for the broader market and broader market fairness. And I think if we came to that second conclusion, then even though individuals might not know where to start, that's the cool part about the internet. It's crowdsourced. If you go through Superstonk, you're going to find every walk of life, every kind of person that's on there. I'm sure that there's attorneys on there directly, realistically. TCM says, I think most GME shareholders are fairly well informed, such as knowing what Seed and Co. and where most traders are to. Jesus, Eric, sound it out. Seed and Co. is where most traders I talk to have never heard of anything like it, and that they don't actually hold shares, only beneficials. Yeah. So I think, TCM, you're comparing another element that I fully agree with, because when we look at GameStop, for the people that remain really close to the story, absolutely will know more about all of these different kind of inner workings. It's one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated, because it's helping me learn more about a lot of these inner workings. So I fully agree with you, compared to like the standard trader, because from the perspective of a standard trader, most of this stuff honestly doesn't impact the day-to-day business that they're trying to run. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's GameStop is one of, and I don't think it's just GameStop. I think the people over at AMC, I know way less about that story. I haven't spent a lot of time on that specifically, but I can absolutely see corollaries between them. So yeah, fully agree. Dayswag says, my goal was to grow the shares. I'm unsure if that's a protest, but it feels good to have an opportunity to learn. Yeah, that's good. And for you, Dayswag, I mean, whether you do it in protest or out of not protest, it's whatever is best for you, right? And however you want to treat it, whatever the activity means to you. So yeah, that's awesome. I love that. That's been one of my favorite things about GameStop, is I'm now understanding way more broadly the perspective of like entities like this that I would have been otherwise unaware of. So yeah. TCM says the community actually tried to crowdsource West Christian. The guy collected the money, stole it, and went crown, and then crowdsourcing was banned. That's crazy. I imagine my guess is there has to be more to that story than that. I just have to, that would be my original perspective on that. But I am really curious, TCM, if you have any, do you have any documentation, posts, anything like that related to it? It's just so interesting to me because it seems like that dude, Wes Christian, it seems like they're trying to help. So that would just be utterly shocking to me if they stole the money from the GME community. Not saying it didn't happen, but I'm just so curious about it. Day Swag is letting Lauren know that Lauren is Day Swag's queen. If you guys don't know, we have a love affair and it's brought by GameStop. Isn't that beautiful? We have now a GameStop. Maybe Cohen can do the wedding or something. But we literally have a GameStop love affair that we all get to be a part of and support. So I love, if nothing else comes from all of my time looking at all this GameStop stuff, this is the win. This is the win for us. All right. So this is when lawyer Wes Christian got involved, filed a civil suit against them. Judge Swain in New York heard the suit in over 9 years, blocked the suit by not ruling on the very first key motion, never allowed Sedona to get discovery, which would have given them the documentation needed, dismissed most of the defendants, including central figures. So Sedona is still in business, trading less than a penny a share. What are the lessons? Major companies such as Ladenburg may enable fraudsters. The SEC and the courts do not provide protection to the victims. I think we can see that. Sedona was taken down in 2001 when SEC passed Reg Show, which was to deal with naked short selling, which we know didn't fix it. 2004, they included massive loopholes, facilitated naked shorting. Yep, GameStop. If, for example, ignored fails that didn't happen in public exchanges, the Badian had moved trades through Canada. Crazy. But it's they've actually put out a paper saying this only refers to trades on exchanges. This doesn't include when you call it nobody knows what's happening in Canada or some other places are not providing information in dark pools. And again, I'm not sure if this is actually dark pools or if she means internalization here. So they did not take the lesson. Wes Christian told me that more than 1,200 hedge funds and offshore accounts were working through more than 150 broker dealers. That's fucking crazy. That's fucking crazy. Damn. Damn. If these people end up leaving the country and going to some place like Austria, then it's too bad, so sad kind of thing. Is that correct? That's correct. So they're talking about people's ability to flee and avoid extradition. One note here is it's not necessarily too bad, so sad. It just means that justice might be delayed. Because the reality is that if they ever want to try to go through the US or any other entity like associated with us in any significant way, they're running a risk. So one of the things to keep in mind, although it's not pure justice and it's not ideal, but it is something at least to be aware of, is that for these people, when they flee to somewhere like Austria, you can still live a life, you can be fine, it's not terrible, but you do have a target on your back. And if you're trying to go somewhere through the US at any point, you essentially can't. So if you have family, friends, anything like that, that's all gone. You have to let all that go. And then you now have to adopt an entirely new life where you're at. Again, I'm not saying that it's terrible. I'm not saying that they won't get by and that it's not fine. I'm just saying that it's not exactly like just get off scot-free and everything's fine. There's still this thing looming over you that you still have to navigate quite literally for the rest of your life. For instance, they went after the Badian settlement for $1 million. They filed legal complaints. What about they don't go after the big players? So then, speaking of low-hanging fruit, if the SEC won't do anything when it comes to manipulation, what ways that companies that as well as shareholders can do to fight against the manipulation? Okay. Bringing cases federal court, even if they get to a certain level, they might be knocked out because certain cases the judges rule only the SEC has jurisdiction. Federal court's not useful. Started going to state courts. You can get discovery, find out where the bodies are. Fuck yeah. Always looking for some bodies. Give me 1 sec. I got to pop the door for Thor. Take a look at. Look at you guys. It's like chat inception. You can see what I look at. This is how I respond to you guys. I just keep an eyeball on this thing in case you were wondering. Fun fact. Okay. So they're talking about the discovery process, which is fucking brutal. They can go through everything. Okay. GameStop was able to reach a price $344 till journalists wrote negative articles, stated that the price GameStop, which stated that the game. What? So this looks like. Lauren says, I'm happy you have it on live chat, not top chat. Top chat is the devil. Sometimes I remember to put it on live chat. I don't always, but thankfully our streams are small enough that I can pretty much keep up with everybody. I think it gets really difficult if it's like a really big stream. I imagine that's like a different problem. Hopefully that's a problem we'll have to deal with at some point in the future as you get more people involved in this stuff. But right now it's not. Well, let's see. Journalists wrote negative articles. I'd like for that's a good way to get another story which specifically deals with journalists. Egyptian pretended to be Italian. San Diego. Wait, is this actually San Diego here? Or is this a different thing? I'm assuming that's actually where I'm at because I'm in San Diego. So I'm wondering if this is actually San Diego. 200 hedge funds that were members, paying them $300 to $600 much for the privilege of being on the website. Who are we going to hit next? I see. Mr. Pink. That's a fun. Yeah, that's a fun name. I'm just skimming through this. Just a lot of fucking. She's doing a great job giving a ton of backstory, but it's a ton of backstory. So Kirshen on tape to the broker. We have journalists on the take. Kirshen had gone to Aruba. Aruba's sick, by the way. Really good diving there. He had gotten cards you can load with money, 25 to a bank, card that someone can use at the ATM, or using these cards to pay journalists. Yeah, okay. The interesting thing is I'm actually really curious like how impactful the journalists are on the price. I mean, you have to imagine like fairly impactful if motherfuckers like Kramer are still in business and stuff. I've never done any sort of a study on, I did do a small study on Hindenburg research, but I've not done a broader study on like journalists and journalist impact on prices. I wonder if there's anything like that. El Guindy case is definitive proof, been manipulation by media. They are paid to do that. Yeah. I mean, you would think that the media is supposed to be unbiased and objective. Maybe this is just because this is older. I can't imagine anybody has actually thought this for decades. Genuinely. I don't think anybody, I'm 30, how fucking old am I? 33? I think I'm about to be 34. I don't know how, 33 or 34. And this, I mean, I can't think of anybody in my generation that actually thinks the media is unbiased and objective. I can't imagine that that's been the case. What? Since like maybe I don't even know, like the 50s, what the perception was. I wasn't really around back then. But I do think that there was a point in time, maybe it's just us churching it up and, thinking about a better time that maybe didn't exist. But I thought that there was a period in time where like journalistic integrity was actually like a really, really important thing and was much more widely consumed. So this is just interesting because I just can't imagine anybody actually thinks that today. Okay, video. Jim Cramer. Good old Jimmy Cramer. Do you believe major media outlets have been compromised? We know that. I don't think that's much of a... Do you believe it's possible that large institutions compensate media outlets? Of course. Yeah, of course. Here's another thing for those that don't know, and I'm not looking to go too far down like the tinfoil rabbit hole and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at who are some of the largest purchasers and sponsors of media, who are the largest corporate sponsors of news and media? Let's see. No, I don't want to know the biggest. Or donors in news media. Let's see. These are federal. Lawrence is the government. I don't think so. Let's see. I'm actually going to see if ChatGPT can help us out. Research what companies are the largest donors and sponsors to US-based news and or media. Let's see. It's actually kind of nuts how difficult it is to find this. I don't actually think that that's happenstance. So one of them is Pfizer. The interesting thing about Pfizer is when you're watching, sports media, you'll see it a lot on sports media. We'll say presented by or in partnership with. But you'll see that pop up every once in a while. And you always find that interesting because it's like, you don't actually see a lot of advertisements there by that company. So then what's going on? And I think a lot of it is this. I think it's that exact kind of thing. And I'm not going to relegate it to Pfizer, but like if I'm a big company and I want to maintain a decent name brand, I don't have to advertise. But what I could do is I can donate to your media company and just ask you don't write shit about me. You don't have to promote me, but just don't write anything. Or if you're going to write something that's decent. So I think that we all know that kind of thing is like pretty profound at this point. In addition, how can regular consumer differentiate between trusted sources and compromised outlets? Fuck, I don't think the way. Yeah, so it's just talking about something that's built up over time. The only thing I can recommend from this perspective is to try and look at stuff from multiple sources. and not multiple of the same sources. I actually try to look at stuff from what I would consider to be opposing sources. So if there's a piece of news that I'm trying to read, I'll literally look for the article on CNN, and then I will look for the article on something like Fox. And I will look at both of their slants on it. The good part about both of their slants is that we know their slants, right? It's not like any subtext that you have to pick up. It's going to be like abundantly clear, the disposition as you're writing it. But I continually try to find really, really objective sources of news. And I struggle with it so hard. Believe it or not, that's actually one of my absolute favorite reasons why I like finance so much. Because finance really does a good job at getting rid of all of the excess bullshit around stuff. And there's also another thing that I'll tell you guys about that I do like. It's called, it's loading right now. Hold on. It's called Ground News. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ground News, but I like that a lot too. Ground News is pretty decent. And the thing about Ground News is it kind of just shows a little bit of different perspectives, which I like. And it kind of helps make it a little more clear what the perspectives are. So yeah, overall, I think it's a bit challenging though to find actually good objective information, but it is what it is. Cool. Let's continue here. Yeah, okay. Motley Fool, Market Watch. Yeah, okay. Evidence after they make claim. Yeah. I would like to know your opinion on mainstream media for CNBC coverage of GameStop. Oh, I like this one. I agree with your distrust, and because of what I haven't watched television 20, 30 years. I don't have a working TV. This is funny. I do have a working TV, but I don't watch TV either. Literally zero. So I identify much with Lucy here. And when there are hearings, go to the website committee. So I would not trust any of these places. I agree. So a quick way to stop being deceived is by avoiding the media. Yeah. Yep. I like that. Oh, what is this? So they're talking about like the ignorance of elected officials. I don't think that's all. I don't think that's like a big surprise. A lot of them too, I think it's important to remember is a bunch of them are going to have their own perspectives and stuff, right? And because they have to represent constituents. Elected official who's saying has unverified information, unqualified sources. What do you make of that? I mean, I don't actually think that that's inaccurate. This is completely accurate, but I also don't think it's fair to bubble up the sources as just this. But I think it's completely fair to say all of these, even regular news, everything has unverified information, unqualified sources. Like I think that that's a fair statement actually. But I understand Lucy's broader point is that they're being naive, especially in the way that they're talking about these things, which I agree completely. Totally disagree with this person who's obviously showing I'd better never even looked at Super Stonk and saw the very granular, serious analysis that's being done there. Again, let's be honest. If we go through Super Stonk right now and we scroll through, you're going to see a lot of nonsense. Just people having fun, people shit posting. I'm not saying that it's bad, but I'm just saying like if you actually have to dig a little bit. And the reason why I know this is because I'm fucking doing it. I've been doing it for, again, 6 months now. And it's not relegated to the time I spend doing these streams with you. It's like the way that I understand this stuff is by spending a lot of time looking at it. My point is that I would argue the majority of what you come across on there are people talking about shoving bananas up their ass and fun memes, right? It's just people being a community, horsing around, supporting one another. But in that, this unequivocally exists. This DD library that we're going through in this specific segment of the library, the Diamond Handbook, is literally the perfect depiction of that. There is some exceedingly intelligent analysis occurring here. Literally couldn't agree more. Okay. We like Keith. That's good. You said the same share could be located dozens of times. Yep. The option market makers like Citadel were exempt from the rules. Yep. So this is good. Okay. Overstock. Shill plaintiff, fake plaintiff. Shill is a real word then. Yes, that's so funny. 2 lawyers from these went to prison. Why did they not look for the other part of the scheme, which is a great question. Overstock filed suit against 11 prime brokers. 11 of them at pursued strategy conversion for market makers. Yeah. Conversions were bought by prime brokers, acquire and vent long stocks that they could loan out. I think the securities lending market is just like the mob, completely rigged. Completely agree. I'm trying to get to the TLDR for this one. Damn. All right. I got to add our leave off point here. Man, this was a really interesting session. Leave off point for 25 Jan. We need to watch some of the Wall Street conspiracy movie. I'm going to add the link to that in here so that we have it all in one spot. We need to start from around 26 min. Cool. Anything you guys want to take a look at before we wrap up? Any questions you guys have from a broader perspective? I haven't really taken time to do like any sort of broader questions and whatnot, which I apologize for. That's why I'm ending a few minutes early before dinner gets here, so that if people have questions, we have a chance to talk about it together. But if not, totally cool as well. Nathan says SoFi. We can look at that kind of thing on Monday. I prefer to keep it specific to GameStop for this one. The purpose of having specific themes for the streams and whatnot is so that we can stay like zoomed in, honed in on stuff. And then streams like the Monday, Wednesday stream, those are good for kind of taking a look at whatever. DCM says check Reddit, link on Discord. Awesome. Thank you. I will take a look through that. Just let me know where it is. Cool. All right, gang. Well, then that wraps me up. If you guys need anything, you always can drop me a line, shoot me an email. If you have a question, hit me up in the Discord. I do my best to respond to everybody as best I can. Thanks for being a part of the journey with me. I cannot tell you how much I'm enjoying learning all about this. I think this is probably one of the most interesting stories I've come across from a bunch of different reasons. But this specific segment of going deeper in all of the analysis behind GameStop, the company, the market, this has been one of the coolest parts for me, because I am a market junkie. Like I said, I've been obsessed with this stuff since I've been a teenager. So being able to go insanely deep on this and understand the markets more in depth is so cool to me. So, and I'm thankful to be able to do that all with you and hopefully show you all some of that as well. So be an outlier. I'll see y'all later.